Hey, good morning, and welcome to One Cool Thing. I'm Alex Clone, this is Sasha Segan, and you may notice that we don't actually have a thing in the form of a product in front of us.
But we could say that the thing is everywhere. The thing is all around us. It's all around you.
Today's One Cool Thing is our results for the fastest mobile networks testing for 2018. Now, if you are watching this on Facebook Live, feel free to ask us questions. If you're watching this after the fact on YouTube, please like and subscribe to the video. So you want to get right to it? So actually, before we get to it, let's describe how we do this testing and what this testing is.
Okay, so fastest mobile networks is one of our biggest stories of the year. What we do is we drive 3 cars around 30 US cities over the course of a month, testing all of the 4G wireless networks, Verizon, Sprint, AT&T, T-Mobile. And now if you have wireless service by another brand, it probably uses one of those networks.
Right.
So that also covers, TracFone, Ting, Twigbee, a lot of those other little companies. Mm-hmm. So we drive around, we have some phones in the car, this year Galaxy S9 phones, that are running a custom version of the Ookla speed test software, customized to our requirements, that are running tests every 90 seconds. And over the course of a month, we got about 88,000 tests around the country, both in our 30 cities and in the drives in rural regions and small cities between those cities. This is the 9th time we've done this. We've done this since 2010. So we pretty much have it down by now. And we have some results from the nation and from all of our cities.
Right, so who's the national winner? Let's just get that right out at the beginning of the show.
It's Verizon.
And how long has Verizon been our national winner now?
So this is Verizon's, let me think about it, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. This is Verizon's 5th year running as the national winner. AT&T, I believe, won in 2013. Mm-hmm. AT&T won in 2010. It is not inconceivable that someone other than Verizon would win. T-Mobile keeps coming close. They've come really close the past 2 years.
Right.
But Verizon just manages to keep a beat ahead on a national basis. But that said, so you look at the national winner, but who lives in national? No one actually lives in a national, And so if we look at our city winners, we have 19 cities where Verizon won or tied, mm-hmm. But 14 cities where T-Mobile won or tied.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so T-Mobile has a really strong presence, just like they did last year.
So one thing that I think it's important for people to know, they might hear that Verizon's the winner and they're saying, oh, well, your tests are probably biased towards Verizon. The way that we rate our speed scores is as fair as can possibly be.
Yeah, what we're doing is, so anyone can criticize a methodology. There are, I have infinite internal criticisms of our own methodology and everyone else's methodology. But what we're trying to do is we're trying to balance a lot of components of a good data network experience in a way that balances them out. And let me show you how it all comes out here on the big board. Okay, so these are our nationwide results. And you see how we have a bunch of different components that end up coming to this eventual score where Verizon is number 1, T-Mobile's number 2, AT&T 3, Sprint 4. What we're doing is that we're balancing out, we have average download and upload speeds, but we also have these floors. And I think these are really important. Mm-hmm. That for downloads, for instance, the difference between 0 and 5 megabits a second matters a lot more in your life than the difference between 20 and 30.
Right.
Especially if you're downloading web pages, the difference between a 2 and a 3 megabit connection and a 30 and a 40 megabit connection, such a big difference. So we look at these percentages of downloads and uploads above a specific floor, and that goes into our results. Mm-hmm. Now we also look at latency. And now latency is the time it takes for a request to return from an outside server. And that plays a big role, especially, once again, in web browsing, because web pages tend to be made of a lot of tiny little files, as opposed to a few big files. And so every time you request one of those tiny little files, there's latency involved.
Right.
And then finally, we're looking at reliability. And this is the percentage of time that our phone in a city or in an area was connected to the LTE network, as opposed to dropping off, as opposed to dropping to 3G. The good news is reliability has gotten much, much better over the years. And so what we found this year was, Verizon had the highest download speeds, the highest upload speeds, and the lowest ping nationwide, though that isn't true city by city.
Right. And we do have individual results for the 30 different cities that we've tested. And you can see if you live in or close to one of those cities what the results are. Like, should we look at the results for New York?
Yeah, sure. Let's pull up some New York results. So winners by city, we go to New York City. And we find that it's Verizon here too. And now notice there's something very interesting about these results. Once again, that shows how we balance the results. Okay, Verizon wins. I mean, they have the highest downloads, they have the highest uploads. But look at these AT&T download speeds. AT&T comes second on downloads, right? But they're tying with T-Mobile in our overall score because T-Mobile has faster uploads and lower latency. So it's about balancing all of those components of your online experience. Now, I also, by the way, we also show where we tested in each city. We try to be really transparent with this story. And if you folks have any questions, then definitely ask them on the stream. Now, I wanted to jump back and look at how this year's results compare to some previous years.
We were just doing that before we started the show, and it's pretty crazy.
It's pretty crazy, isn't it? Yeah, okay, let's go back to the overview here. And so now we've got here that, where's our national winners? There we go. So we've got here that Verizon, Verizon's at 49.7 megabit download average, right? Let's jump back to last year. Where's last year? That's 2018. I wanted 2017. Fastest. 2017. Mobile Networks 2017. And it's
we are waiting
redirecting
for
to 2018 because of the
redirect.
production process. Okay, so I'll jump further back. Let's jump to 2015. Okay. And 2015, this year, 49. 3 years ago, 27. So that's almost doubling download speeds in 3 years. Let's push it even further back, 2012. 6 years ago. 6 years ago, Verizon's 4G average download speed was 8.5. So so let's see, that's 8 times about 6. So 6 times increase in download speeds in 6 years. Let's go back to our original tests. Fastest mobile networks 2010. Okay, 2010, I'm sure many of you viewers weren't even born yet. That's a joke. And we're looking at Verizon. They didn't even have 4G yet, so it's a little bit of a joke. Average download speed, 1 megabit per second. One. So we are now roughly 49 times the speed we were in our original tests.
Also, so looking at this, seeing some of these maximums, some of these speeds are absolutely insane. Like, where are we getting those?
Okay, I know that 354 for Verizon came in San Francisco. Specifically, I believe in the Fillmore neighborhood of San Francisco. And we can see this because I'm tracking the cars everywhere they go.
Right.
I can see all the individual tests. So yeah, that 354 is from the Fillmore neighborhood in San Francisco. Now, one thing I was surprised that we didn't see is the effect of a new technology being installed in downtowns called LAA. And we have a couple of stories that Pete can link about testing out AT&T LAA in Chicago, T-Mobile LAA in New York. And those are extremely short-range systems, but we've been seeing 400, 500 megabit downloads on those. And it may just be luck of the draw that, our drivers didn't pass by an LAA post at the right time. in each city. One of the things we do with these tests is I give the drivers parameters of where to go, but we give them some freedom of where to go in each city, and that's kind of to balance out, to make sure that the carriers don't exactly know where we are at any given moment.
Right.
You know, so they're not like beamforming directly at us. They know we're in town, but they don't know what neighborhood we're in.
Right, now I think we should talk a little bit about why we use Galaxy S9s this year as opposed to a different phone.
Yes, yes. Let's talk about the Galaxy S9, and let's talk about lame iPhones. Okay. So the Galaxy S9 supports all of the latest network technologies that the US carriers currently use. It supports LAA. It supports T-Mobile's Band 71, which is really extended rural coverage, and we saw that in Kansas, we saw that in Oklahoma, we saw that in rural Oregon.
Right.
We definitely saw Band 71 kicking in. And it supports the maximum levels of carrier aggregation, 4x4 MIMO, which uses multiple antennas to increase range and power. HPUE, which is a special technology that Sprint uses. The S9 has everything. The iPhone X does not.
Right.
And so we pulled these charts from our partner Ookla Speed Test crowdsourced database to show you average speeds on the S9 versus the iPhone X on LTE in the US. And you can see that the S9's support of more advanced network technologies makes a significant difference. It's like a 25% difference. And then if you also look at, and that isn't just true about Samsung versus Apple, it's also true within generations of Samsung and Apple phones.
Right.
Look at the iPhone 10, 7, 6S, and 6. The 10 and the 8 use the same modem. So you see here 10, 7, 6S, 6. It's pretty clear they're going down. Galaxy S9, 8, 7, 6. Each year, they introduce new network technologies that sync up with what the carriers have introduced, and the performance gets better. Looks like we have some questions.
How many, or in the past, like how many times have we been using a Samsung phone? Is it generally, they've been generally the go-to brand, do you think?
We've used, let's see. Yeah, we have pretty frequently used Samsungs.
Have we used HTC?
Yes, we have also used HTC. I'm trying to remember if we've used LGs.
I feel like we have.
Yeah, we've also used LG at one point. I'm pretty sure. There were a couple of years when we were still testing Verizon and Sprint 3G, and so we had to use whatever 3G phones they were offering for those brands. But yeah, it's been a mix of Samsung, HTC, and LG over the years.
Yeah, I mean, the important thing to know is that we're not favoring a brand. We are favoring whichever phone supports the latest network technologies.
And, well, it has to do two things. It has to support the latest network technologies and be available on all carriers.
Right.
So it can't be like somebody's exclusive.
Right.
The first year we used laptops.
Right.
Yeah. The first
Things
year.
have changed.
Oh man, the first year we used laptops and we had this shell script that we had to run, and it was crazy. Now we have custom software and phones, and yeah, everything's easier. So one of the things that became clear in this story, for instance, is that if you're frustrated with your speeds, you may not need to change carriers. You may just need to get a better phone for your network.
Right.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little about Sprint.
Yes.
Because Sprint, I mean, every year.
Sprint's weird.
Yeah, Sprint is strange. I mean, they have consistently been the slowest carrier in our tests over most of the years that we've run this.
Yep.
But yeah, we saw some interesting things this year.
So let's go to Seattle, which is the one city that Sprint won outright. Okay. Just to say, hey, Sprint. Okay. Sprint's download speeds this year went through the roof. Sprint has a particular kind of network technology where they can, if they want, juice download speeds, but at the expense of upload speeds.
Right.
And so in studies, I suspect in other studies which just look at download speeds, Sprint is going to look very, very good this year. I mean, look here in Seattle. Okay, 68.3 average down.
Right.
That's really good for an average. And we saw this in a whole bunch of other cities as well, which you can see throughout the story. But 5.1 up. And because our numbers are 40% downloads, 20% uploads, that the huge differential between downloads and uploads meant that Sprint didn't win a lot of cities.
Right.
But if you look at the raw numbers, you find that Sprint's downloads, if you're not an uploady type of person, I guess, if you're more of a consumer than a producer,
Right.
yeah, then Sprint is looking pretty good this year.
Yeah, like if you're browsing Facebook and watching videos and all that, those Sprint numbers are great. If you're trying to send things to other people, it's going to be slower.
Right, right. And especially if you're trying to send videos.
Right.
That is the key. Because if you're just like sending emails, sending an email is honestly more reliant on this latency number than on the upload speed number, because the emails themselves are very small.
Right.
The real question is all the handshaking you're doing with the email server. So you look here, and Sprint's latency is very competitive.
Right.
It's number 2, so that's really good. But yeah, uploads are really about it's really about uploading images and videos.
Right.
When you're trying to back up your Google Photos library with your unlimited data.
And so for these tests, we did test in 30 major cities throughout the U.S., but probably a lot of people who are watching now and a lot of people in the U.S. don't live in or around those major cities. We did some drive-through testing for suburban areas, and we have results for those too.
Yeah, suburban and rural areas. Let me pull those up. It looks like we have a question, by the way.
Just based on the trajectory of these carriers, do you feel like Verizon's would maybe stay in the lead for next year or beyond? Like, what do you think is going to change over time?
Oh man, next year is going to be weird. Next year's going to be so weird. So all the carriers are launching 5G networks between now and our next tests. AT&T is launching towards the end of this year. Verizon, T-Mobile, and Sprint should all be launching in the first quarter of next year. And they're all using very different approaches to 5G networks. AT&T is doing hotspots. T-Mobile is doing generally very broad coverage, but at slower speeds. Verizon is probably going to do only in cities, but at super high speeds. I am going to have to rethink my entire methodology. Like, honestly, like, I don't even know when we have networks that different how we define what the winner is yet. I think there's going to be months of discussions about that.
And I do think that next year will be one of the most interesting years that we've had probably since 4G really went widespread.
Yeah, since 2011 or
Yeah.
2012, which is when we started seeing 4G competition. Let me see if that was 2012. Yeah, 2012 was when we saw AT&T and Verizon really starting to duke it out on 4G.
Right.
And next year is going to be fascinating, but I have no answers about 2019 just because it's going to be so new and so weird.
Right.
Looking over to our rural suburban results. So what happened was, obviously we drove to 30 cities, but we had to get from city to city. So, for instance, in the Northeast, we drove mostly down the I-95 corridor and kind of tootled our way through New Jersey. In the Southwest, we drove from San Diego over to Tucson, up to Phoenix, over to Flagstaff, then it's across northern Arizona, up to Las Vegas. The Southeast involved kind of central Florida, rural Georgia. So we got some of these areas. And one of the things that jumped out at me, was how well T-Mobile did in a lot of these smaller cities and rural areas, and that's new. That is definitely new.
And is that band 71?
Some of it's band 71, some of it's just band 12, which is older, and just T-Mobile filling that out and working on their coverage and having improved coverage. And it's not true about the whole country. In the west of the Rockies, and in the Rockies, T-Mobile still really, really struggles in rural areas. But in the east half of the country, they're doing a lot better.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, so any more questions out there? Okay, so that's Fastest Mobile Networks 2018. You can find our full many pages of story on PCMag.com /fastest-mobile-networks. If you are in Canada, be aware that this summer we are driving Canada for the 6th time. We're going to be driving around Canada, doing Fastest Mobile Networks Canada across all 10 provinces, once again, just like we did last year. Very excited to start that project this summer. It'll be coming out late in the summer, and we will keep you updated.
Yeah, so the story is live now, and we'll have a link in the show notes. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you again tomorrow with another cool thing.